I'm one of those types of people who has a problem sitting still. During the week of September 11th, I had the privilege of meeting thousands of other people with the exact same problem. The media told us it was an attack at the very heart of America. What they failed to notice is that within 8 hours, the trains were running again, the blood banks were filled within 12 hours, and within 24 hours there were more volunteers than anyone knew what to do with. Robert and I were two of those volunteers who were naive enough to think that we were just going to walk down to Ground Zero and start helping out. We began at the Salvation Army headquarters at 14th Street and 6th Avenue. Robert and I got rescue worker ID tags and walked right through the barricades at 14th Street. We got all the way down to Houston before the police redirected us toward Pier 41. Everyone was trying to get down to Ground Zero, and everyone was being turned away. We put our names on several lists, talked with the police captain, generally made a pain in the ass out of ourselves, but they just weren't letting anyone through those barricades except for personnel in official vehicles. People lined the West Side Highway cheering the rescue workers while Robert and I stood there thinking about our next move. We had been advised to proceed to the Javits Center and try and get an assignment from there, but other volunteers told us that the mob scene at the Javits Center was worse than the one at the pier. We decided to head back up to the Salvation Army headquarters and try to get a ride on an official vehicle. We figured that we'd just walk in there and hop on the next truck headed for Ground Zero. Instead, we spent our afternoon as part of a human chain unloading trucks filled with donations. It's somewhere between midnight and 2 a.m. The Salvation Army lets me sleep in the homeless shelter for the evening. They're nice people, and I vow to make them so sick of me that they'll pick me up and throw me in the next truck to Ground Zero. It only takes me the next 24 hours to accomplish this. It rains all afternoon. Night falls, and after 36 hours of unloading trucks, moving supplies, and directing traffic, Robert and I are finally promised a spot on the next van headed towards Ground Zero. Immediately afterwards, I hear one of the captains discussing anthrax. They were saying that anthrax was detected in the air at Ground Zero. That would explain why there were suddenly seats available on the van going down there. I discussed this with Robert. We decide it's probably a rumor, and we're going down there anyway. We pile in and find ourselves having a good nervous laugh with the 4 other people in the van. Everything seems normal until we hit Houston Street. The air smells unclean. I put on my respirator. Robert calls his wife on my cell phone and tells her that he's not coming home that night. We drive through the Canal Street barricades into what's being called the frozen zone. There were no lights and no people. There was no movement anywhere except for little tribal encampments of soldiers, police, or utility workers. We make a wrong turn and get lost in the dark. I don't know what street we were on, but we came around a corner, and suddenly we were there. I haven't seen any television or newspapers in the past 2 days, so this is my first look at Ground Zero. It consists mostly of ketchup, tubes of toothpaste, sweatshirts, objects that I'm familiar with, and then beyond that, the top of one of the towers sticking up out of Church Street. To my right is a pile that used to be World Trade No. 7. I've lived in New York my whole life, and I wasn't aware that there was a World Trade No. 7 until someone told me it fell down. From where I'm standing, on the corner of Church and Vesey Streets, this is all I can see. This corner is called the Church Street Canteen. There's a hot food table, then a Salvation Army mobile kitchen. After that is a catering truck with a tent and a gas grill. Beyond us was one of those breakfast carts that had been abandoned, Danishes and all, and would probably remain so. No one's actually in charge here, so we just jump in and start doing whatever we think needs to be done. The guy working the gas grill says he has to go to the bathroom and asks if I'll take over for him. He'll be back in 5 minutes, he says. I wind up working the grill for the next 2 hours. I lose track of Robert and make literally hundreds and hundreds of hot dogs. I feel like the host of some weird apocalyptic party. There's this huge crater in the ground, thousands of people are dead, and here I am making hot dogs, having a good laugh with the NYPD and a bunch of iron workers who are so happy to be getting fed I think they must be joking. It's like the world just ended, so we decided to have a barbecue. Eventually Robert shows up. He's been down Church Street and back again. As it turns out, we're on the edge of the action. The crater, which everyone seems to be calling the pile, is to the west of us. Most of the work is going on all the way down Church Street on the south side of the pile. But there are several checkpoints to go through in order to get there. We would need help with those, so we take a bunch of hot dogs with us. Moving down Church Street on the east is the Millennium Hotel. We're told to be alert because it might fall down. You should always be ready to run and have an escape route planned anytime you get near this building. We get past the Millennium and the hot dogs are going pretty fast. The fact that Robert is advertising doesn't help. "Get your hot dogs here," he yells. It wouldn't be truly surreal without a hot dog. No beer, no peanuts, just hot dogs. The next run we make is complete with cups full of ketchup, mustard, and relish. Everything is fine until someone asks for sauerkraut. Robert is stumped. He used to be a reactor operator on a nuclear submarine, and now he's forgotten the sauerkraut. He doesn't shut up about this for the next hour. In front of us is the remains of World Trade No. 4. This is the building Robert used to work in. The south tower came down and flattened half of it. On the corner of Fulton Street, looking west, you can see right down the mouth of the crater where the towers used to be. The air is so thick with smoke and dust that it appears to be white. When they turn the work lights on, the reflection off those particles causes visibility to get worse. Across the street, it's a Century 21 department store. I'm sure they've had better ad campaigns than this one in the past. Like everything else at Ground Zero, this building is covered in dust. We watch two cops add their tags to the dirty walls below the shattered display windows. We turn back to the street and see two guys staring at their trailer hitch. I look down and sitting there is some kind of strange bird. I don't know what it is, but either it's tame or the air made it too sick to fly away. We figure it was someone's pet. The owner must have been thoughtful enough to let it out of the cage when the towers were being evacuated. One of the guys picks it up, puts it in the cab of his truck, and that's the last we see of it. We reach the top of the south tower, which turned upside down and stuck into the center of Church Street like a giant pitchfork. Robert says they should just stick a memorial plaque on it and leave it there. I agree, but instead the iron workers are trying to take it down. We're being held back behind barricades as they try to pull the wreckage over with a crane. When that doesn't work, they try two cranes at once, but the top of the tower refuses to fall. As it turns out, these girders went 40 feet down into the ground and really were not in any danger of falling over. This bit of wreckage was to become the most photographed part of Ground Zero. Finally, we get down to the south side of the pile, and everybody's standing around with their hands in their pockets. It looks like they haven't found anything good or bad in quite a while. We didn't come to Ground Zero to be hot dog vendors, so I asked some questions about helping out on the pile. The answer is, unless I'm in the Iron Workers Union, I'm not allowed to be on the pile. This doesn't make me happy, and I'm complaining about it to Robert as we walk into Burger King HQ. This is the Burger King on the corner of Church and Liberty that the NYPD is using as a temporary base of operations. Robert marches straight up to the counter and asks if they have sauerkraut. I'm upset because I don't like the idea of not being allowed out on the pile. I want to do something important, but before I'm done whining about it, Robert has put together a list of supplies they need at Burger King HQ. Look, he says, now we have something important to do. As we head back up Church Street to get supplies, I notice another part of the South Tower has wound up inside of the Bankers Trust building. The engineers are saying this will probably have to be torn down. In the park across the street, someone has taken the bronze sculpture that used to sit here and made a memorial to the construction workers who died trying to rescue people. At first I was startled. Under the work lights, it looked like a person sitting absolutely still, covered in dust. Further up the street, something less startling but equally strange. Aside from being dirty and having some broken windows, One Liberty Plaza looks okay. But we hear the engineers saying that due to the collapse of the towers, which was equivalent to a magnitude 6 earthquake, this building will also have to be taken down. We get back to the Church Street canteen, put together supplies we need from all the stuff lying around, and begin making runs between the north and south sides of the pile. Towards the end of the night, Robert and I decide to do something a little different. We take 2 trays full of hot chicken soup to help get us through the checkpoints, head down Church Street, and go west. By this time, the cops are used to me and Robert walking around. The firefighters don't care one way or the other, so the only people who stop us are the search and rescue guys. They help themselves to some hot soup and let us through. Some National Guard troops take the remaining soup off our hands and leave us alone. We walk over to the edge of the crater and look out across the pile. It was the largest and most rapidly produced piece of performance art in the world. Some Americans originally built these towers to express how they felt about America. Later on, a bunch of terrorists knocked down these towers, thus rearranging them in a way that expressed how they felt about America. Since words don't seem to work with you people, have a look. This is how much I hate you. The van drops us off at Chambers Street. This is the new entry and exit point for the frozen zone. It's me, Robert, a guy from the Bucks County Sheriff's Department in full riot gear, and 2 Orthodox Jewish girls in full-length denim skirts. We must look totally ridiculous, and I'm convinced somebody is going to throw us all out of there. But we walk right through the checkpoints and make it down to ground zero with no problem. We find more National Guard troops and more barricades than the night before. The news is that the frozen zone will be under martial law as of 8 a.m., and all previously issued security clearances will expire at that time. They've begun using heavy equipment to haul away the wreckage of Building Number 7, regardless of the fact that it's still burning. At the canteen, we hear some of the truck drivers complaining that some of these girders are so hot they cause the beds of the dump trucks to crack and split open. I'm putting together food and supplies for our first run when Robert disappears someplace. The next time I see him, he's taken a couple of police barricades and set them up in the street by our grill. He throws 2 sheets of plywood and a blue plastic tarp over the whole thing, puts out food, and welcomes the police and firefighters to Cafe Bob. As more people come by to graze, we get chairs for them to sit in from the coffee shop inside Borders Books across the street. We set off down Church Street on our first supply run of the evening. We take this picture and plan on emailing it to everyone we know who's trying to get down to ground zero but can't. If I was stuck at home watching this on television, I'd lose my mind, so I figured they could all use a little morale boost. Halfway down the street, the top of the South Tower stands victorious. The iron workers have left it alone to hack and hammer away at other, smaller objects. Unfortunately, a large crane is in use tonight, so we get detoured east on Day Street to the edge of ground zero. They've erected a perimeter fence to keep out the Wall Street types who will be returning to work on Monday. There's a cop in charge of this corner. He says he'll be here all night and promises to remember us on our way back. We're outside of ground zero in the frozen zone, walking down Broadway. The streets are neat and clean compared to what's going on only 1 block to the west. We get down to Liberty Street and have to negotiate with National Guard officers to get back inside the perimeter. Finally, we arrive at Burger King HQ. except it's no longer HQ. The police command center has been moved to a more permanent location. In its place, upstairs, is a medical trauma unit. We make our first drop, take orders for whatever else they need, and head back out again. The rescue operation has changed course this evening. They have abandoned an ocean of 5-gallon buckets in favor of heavier equipment. There are also hundreds of gas cylinders to fuel the torches of iron workers who are cutting down whatever failed to collapse. We head back out onto Broadway. A National Guard captain promises to remember us in exchange for cheeseburgers. This is no problem, but when we get back up to Day Street, the cop who said he'd be there all night is gone, and it takes us 5 minutes to talk our way back inside the perimeter. The rest of the night is spent going back and forth across the site, having to negotiate with everyone who promised to remember us and didn't, or who promised to be there all night and wasn't. While taking a rest between runs, I happened to look up. The night before, we noticed these fuzzy things all over the place, but didn't have a chance to figure out what they were. Finally, we get a closer look. Venetian blinds. They had been blown out of the windows with such force that they wrapped around any object that was upright. They looked like furry little decorations all over everything. Robert climbs the dead escalator alongside number 5 World Trade and looks out at number 7. Behind him, he hears boots crunching on broken glass. He turns around and peers into the shattered window of the Children's Daycare Center and sees a New York City cop fading in and out of the smoke, carefully holding a child's backpack. He lays the pack on a table, opens the zipper, and lays out his find, a small pink jumper with a yellow flower over the heart and little attached booties. The sun begins to rise around 6. It's up by 7, and there is a lull in the activity as the workers change shifts. Instead of leaving, we decide to eat some breakfast and have a look at Ground Zero in the daylight. We leave by 8 and have to walk over to Chambers Street to sign ourselves out. On Barclay Street and West Broadway, we find ourselves on the other side of number 7. Because this is the way people are entering and exiting Ground Zero, every conceivable flat surface is covered in writing. The walls of Lower Manhattan have become a dusty guest book, and it looks like all 8.5 million pissed-off New Yorkers have signed in. But it's not just New York. San Francisco, Delaware, Birmingham, Alabama. The whole country is here helping us out. And anyone who isn't here yet is on the way. This is not something New York will forget about when it comes time to return the favor. We saw these cars the night before, scattered all over various streets around the pile. My life has become nocturnal, and the daytime crews have scooped these up and dropped them into this parking lot while I was sleeping. We get up to Chambers Street and sign ourselves out for the day. Immediately afterwards, we come across a veterinary MASH unit that had been set up to care for the rescue dogs that had burned their little feet walking around on the hot steel girders. This is not something I would have thought of. I'm glad somebody did. Everything below Canal Street is now under martial law. I've been issued a new security clearance. It'll be good for only one more night. That's it. I get to the Church Street Canteen to find Cafe Bob in full swing. Somebody put a tent up over the whole thing, and they're serving hot food. Inside the formerly inactive Salvation Army mobile kitchen, I find a couple from Connecticut has gotten the gas grill working. They're making hamburgers, and for a change it seems like everything is under control. So instead of hanging around, I head down to the south side of the pile. The energy of Ground Zero is slowly fading. It feels as if people have accepted this. The sense of urgency that existed a couple of nights ago is gone. It's as if the wreckage has settled into place and decided to lie still for the first time. And, for the first time, people have a chance to tell their stories.
Before this building collapsed here, there was a command center here. This is the corner, the World Trade Center here. And I walked down to this door here. I was on a search rope by myself. Unknowing to me, this was a collapse zone. And I went down this escalator into the basement, where we're going down now. Here was I down here in the dark, like I'm in now. Here. Okay. Here's the upstairs collapsed here. These are all the pits. Now this is going out to light, so I'm going out to to where the mezzanine was. This is the hole. So I was all under here. This is what's left of the World Trade Center here. Now, I was searching here, all through here, before this collapsed. I hear exploding, which I thought was cars. But it wasn't. It was the building coming down. Down here it sounded like cars. We were searching in here for people. As I hear someone needing assistance for a roof rope rescue. So I came up here again. And the command center that is here now, when I went down out in the street, is gone. They pulled it back a few blocks. They were trying to do a roof rope rescue over here. And as the floors caught on fire, they were just losing guys. You'd see men helping men, and then they would just be gone.
I'm standing by myself right in the middle of Church Street watching the sunrise. The first 3 rays come slicing through the smoke. They're followed by giant columns of sunlight taking root everywhere. Little bits of order have been carved out of the chaos, like trails through a forest. The site was now under control, and many volunteer personnel, such as myself, were being politely thanked for our help and then relieved of service. When the shift change happened, I knew I wasn't coming back. I went up to the corner and got my gear out of the truck. I said goodbye to Cafe Bob, the Church Street Canteen, and all the people I met there, knowing that if I ever returned to Ground Zero, it would no longer be this horrible, wonderful thing that caused so many people to come together. Instead, it would be a memorial park, or maybe a new set of buildings. Either way, it would be clean and smooth and flat. That's not the way I want to remember it. So I headed north on Church Street and never looked back. September 11th would have been an attack on the very heart of America if we had allowed it to be. But instead, we got up, turned off the television, and went outside to help. The terrorists didn't expect that. They thought they could crush our spirit. Instead, all they did was prove to us that we have spirit. So if you had a problem sitting still the week of September 11th, even if you didn't get to go to Ground Zero, give yourself a pat on the back, because this problem is actually not a problem. It's a virtue. It's a virtue that tricked an entire nation of people into letting their guard down and showing that even though we don't admit it very often, we actually do care about each other. And in the end, I think we did pretty good. So here's to all those people who, in times of trouble, found themselves simply unable to sit still.
This is my company. This is my men. There's my captain. That's what's left of the Trade Center there.
Hello. Anyone got canisters for this thing?
Shit, no.
You grab extras for this?
Mike, John, Mike Lynch is alive?
Yes, he is.
Oh, great. That's wonderful.
He looks great.
Wonderful.
He asked about everybody.
Give the guy's camera back now.
Okay.